Hello. One of the things that I have been challenged to do lately is to talk a little bit more about myself and how my path led to the work that I do today, and how the lens that I have impacts the work that I do today. Um, so, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Greta Lax. I am a coach, a consultant, and a facilitator. My training is primarily industrial organizational psychology background. My uh, with a lot of experience actually also working in health equity and social determinants of health areas. So my focus is generally around leadership development, leadership team development, on DEI strategy development. And my work has a particular focus around intercultural development and really helping those leaders that I work with, the teams that I work with, to develop some of the mindset as well as some of the knowledge and skills that are going to help them to better play their roles in doing this work and doing the work of becoming more inclusive organizations, and of implementing that work at multiple levels across the organization, right? But helping everyone be more prepared to play their role in that work. So the question is, how did I get here? And one aspect of my story actually starts long before, well, actually, not too long before, because I've been working since before I was old enough to hold a work permit. Um, so there's that story. Um, so I've worked lots and lots of jobs over the course of my life, from babysitting to waitressing and tending bar um, to scrubbing toilets and cleaning, to working for air ambulance and air charter for a small company, to working hospital registration. And these are all jobs I had before I was even out of college. So I've had lots and lots of jobs along the way. Um, that give it another interesting lens into the work I do, but that's a story for another day. But at that time, so before I was able to hold a work permit, I had the opportunity to spend some time traveling. Not that my family had really traveled much, but I had the opportunity to spend some time with family who lived in other parts of the country. So I spent a little bit of one summer in Colorado, staying with family there. And I spent a little part of another summer in California spending time with family there. So for a young teen who was growing up in far northern Wisconsin, actually right up on the border with the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in a very, very small town, these were really important experiences that helped to shape my lens on the world. Um, because getting to see how even folks coming from the same family can have very different lives, right? Your day-to-day life can look very, very different, or impacted by the experiences you have along the way and how those diverge from the folks that you grew up with, and also how the cultures that you live in, right? The life in Colorado, life in California is very different than life in northern Wisconsin. So getting to see how that impacts people, how it impacts people's lens on the world, was fascinating to me from a very early age, even if I didn't have the language to talk about that yet. Um, so I was very grateful for the family who is willing to take me in and to help provide those experiences that really helped to expand my lens early on and feed my curiosity for human beings and for human behavior, and for the differences that exist between us, along with the similarities that we share, of course. In addition to those opportunities to stay with family and how that began to open up my lens a little bit and feed into my curiosity, I also was a foreign exchange student my senior year of high school. So I was also one of the youngest students. Actually, I think I was the youngest student in my class in high school. There might have been one person younger than me. So I, at uh, the young age of 16, I started my senior year of high school at age 16, um, went to Brazil and lived for almost just shy of a year, actually, in Brazil as a foreign exchange student through the Rotary program. So many thanks to Rotary. Um, to Mr. Anderson, who was the Rotary person in Eagle River, Wisconsin, where I came from, and supported our efforts that way, and to Osvaldo Ponce, who was the Rotary person in Sertãozinho, the state of Sao Paulo in Brazil, who welcomed me, and how fantastic they were. I had the opportunity at that time to stay with 4 different families. Interestingly, 2 of them were related. 2 of my host mothers were sisters. But other than that, the 4 families came from very different experiences themselves, very different backgrounds themselves. So even within that experience, that opportunity to stay with different families from different backgrounds added another layer of richness to that experience. It was an extremely challenging experience as someone who had 2 years of high school Spanish. Was not able to speak it, but at least I had some experience with conjugating verbs, learning Portuguese in a relatively short period of time, and learning to navigate that culture at such a young age. Certainly, there was a lot that I missed simply because of my limited view, because of my age and lived experience to that point. And at the same time, it still was a significant experience in vastly broadening the lens that I had for understanding how very different people's experiences are in this world. So even amongst folks who have very similar values, have very similar lived experiences, there are significant difference, and even more so for those of us where our lived experiences is completely different, and the culture is more visually different, more more vastly different. Kind of the difference between that time with families where lived experience was very different versus my experience as an exchange student. So what those really experiences really did in terms of broadening my lens, it taught me early a sense of, I don't know if it taught me curiosity, but it definitely increased my curiosity in humans and the different ways that we are in the world. And it also expanded or increased my sense of humility, right? That sense of not making the assumption that the way I see the world, the way that I am in the world is the only way to be. The way that my family is in the world is not the only way to be. That people's very different experiences because of the people, the institutions, the cultures, where they learn a sense of shared meaning, where they learn a sense of shared understanding of how vastly they can impact our lens on the world. So really developing that sense of humility, in the sense of there is not, one right way to do this, that people come at life from a variety of different perspectives, and how valuable it truly can be to better understand those different perspectives, and how valuable that can be to both enriching your own life, but eventually, further on in my experience, learning how valuable that can be to your professional life as well. So valuable personally, valuable professionally. And those experiences were really critical to opening my eyes to this work. So what does that look like today, and how does that thread carry through today? One of my favorite pieces of doing this work is working, like I said, with leaders, with leadership teams, or just, and that's leader broadly defined, right? I consider entrepreneurs to be leaders in their own right, in ways that they don't necessarily see themselves to be yet. But working with folks on that very personal side of professional development, to first of all help hold up a mirror Because where we see ourselves and where other people see us, right, there can be significant differences between those two. So, helping folks hold up a mirror to see where your mindset is today. One of the tools I commonly use is the intercultural development inventory, which gives us a sense of where you are in terms of your comfort navigating the differences that exist between people, and particularly those differences that make a difference, that impact how we see and interact with the world around us, and also how the world interacts with us, sees and interact with us. So, holding up that mirror, helping people see how they understand how we see ourselves, how that differs from where other people are likely to see us. And then using that information, pairing that along with your vision and your goals, what's of interest and your curiosity, right? Where's your interest lie? And how do we use that information to build a development plan that is going to fit best for you? And again, whether that's you as an individual or you as a team, there's a capacity to work with folks as individuals, but there's also a capacity to work with team level development and helping folks move together. To again develop some of the knowledge and skills and abilities that are going to help them function better together as a team, and also to better serve the organization, the clients, and the customers that you're working with. So starting with holding up that mirror, then moving into better understanding your organization's mission and vision and goals, and using that to really further tailor the development plan, to take those things into consideration. So the tool, one of that I mentioned, the IDI, spits out a kind of general development plan depending on where you are on this mindset continuum in terms of your level of intercultural development. But then my job is to really work with you to help you tailor that in a way that's really meaningful for you, for your team, for moving forward, and then supporting you along the way, because it's all well and good to get this information, to get this report, to get this plan that prints out and I can hand it to you, and that's great. But that is quite often where people get stuck. All too often, this is where people get stuck. Because just because you have the information doesn't mean that you know how to move forward with it, even when there is there's pretty clear instruction on how to do it, but there's also the motivation. When we're doing things alone like that, it can be much harder to keep the momentum and to utilize that information to truly move forward. So I'm here to help support you, to help support your team along that developmental trajectory, to set checkpoints. Ideally, we know that significant change in this area can take 9 months to a year. So whether we work together for the first 6 months, whether we work together for a year, and then see where we are and decide whether or not to continue that work. Again, whether that's an individual as a team, my job is to help support you along that journey, to do it in a way that aligns with your goals, with your values, with your interests, and to help ensure that you continue to move forward in this work so that you and your team are at the end in a better place to be able to play your roles in working together, as well as in creating a more inclusive environment, um, as well as playing your role in the overall larger diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy that your organizations may have. So that is a little bit about me, about how my lens on this work developed starting very, very early in my life, and how that still feeds into the work that I do, how that feeds into the passion that I do for working with individuals. So I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear kind of what brought you into today, what thoughts the conversation raised today, or my little spiel here might have raised for you today, if you have any questions. And I'd love to talk to you about how this might be a useful path forward for you, how I can support you and or your team in this development, whether it is specifically on the intercultural development component, or whether it is working in terms of building a larger DEI strategy for your organization. So there is a link in my profile or my bio, depending on where you're watching this, to set up a free 30-minute consultation. Feel free to message me if you're more comfortable with that, at least to start. My website is gretalaxllc.com. Otherwise, there's a link, like I said, right in my profile and my bio. It might take you to Linktree, where there's a Calendly link to set up a free 30-minute consultation. I really would love to talk to you. I love learning about others, about their experiences, about the challenges they're facing, and brainstorming ways to help you address those challenges, to help you move forward in your personal and professional development in ways that are valuable to you. So thanks for listening today, and I hope I get a chance to talk to you a little bit more about what matters to you and how we can help you move further along your trajectory. Thanks again.